welcome back to Iraq. Welcome back to another hot day here. And today we are leaving the lights of Karbala and heading to the heart of Iraq, an ancient civilization. A place steeped in history, the centre of Mesopotamia and the largest city of its time. So join us as we walk in the footsteps of many of the world's great leaders, such as Nebuchadnezzar II, Alexander the Great, and of course our good friend George W. Bush. So come along while we explore the most historic of them all, Babylon. Let's check it out. So just stop at one of the roadside, I don't know what you call this, but this is where they serve tea and biscuits and snacks. You get this all over Iraq, but we don't know where the vendor is, so I think what the driver's going to do is just help himself. This is typical of Iraq. There we go. Am I the only one having?
No. It's free, obviously, you know?
Yeah.
Serve yourself since nobody's serving you.
Yep.
Bit chai, Khali. Khali, bit chai.
What's this noise? What's this for? Any reason?
No, he's expert.
Ah, okay. Ah, right. This is what the professionals do. Okay, so here we go. Give it a little stir.
Bismillah.
Mix all that sugar in, all the good stuff. And, yeah, put that there.
Hot.
Apart from being very, very sweet and having too much sugar, it's also very, very hot. Iraqi tea is very hot, and this is a way to cool it down. I'm not sure how hygienic it is, but there you go. Some Iraqi tea.
Working, you said 4 hours.
Tell you what, if I'd done this in Ireland or the UK,
yeah. Really?
Oh yeah. You get your head kicked in.
And here it's a chance.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't do it, so YOLO.
Oh, I'll tell you what, give me a shot of Sambuca any day. For anyone thinking that we stole this, we actually left money. Alright. There we go. So yeah, is this the traditional Afghani coffee that you guys use? Yeah? What's the name of it? Brazilian Bon. What?
You're an oracle.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's all the same. Well, I never thought I would say this, but welcome to Babylon. What about that? You are now inside about 5,000 years of history. Babylon was the biggest city twice. Once 1900 BC and then again 600 BC by the infamous Nebuchadnezzar II. But look at that. It's a bit like, it's probably what you would expect paradise to be like 5,000 years ago. Or 4,000 years ago rather, but here is the map of what it would have been looked like. Obviously built it several times. None of this would have been around at the same time, but we are up at number 18, just below 19. And everything else here is covered or either demolished. So everything from the left and here is what we'll get to see today. So pretty impressive as far as maps and cities go, but over 250,000 people. Let's have a quick look at this. Is the original world map, which shows you everywhere from Assyria, Aban, Bet Yakan. You would have had Egypt, Turkey, and of course Syria and Iraq. A bit different to the maps nowadays, eh? And here another map of modern day Iraq. You have where we came from, you have Baghdad, got the overnight train down to Basra. We went to Nazareth, Garden of Eden, the marshlands, up to Uruk, Najaf, last night Karbala, and of course now Babylon. So that shows how the maps have changed over time, over the course of 3 or 4,000 years. But let's take a look at Babylon and how much it has changed over the course of time. Only 10% of the city has actually been excavated. So what we're doing at the minute, we're walking over the many temples, the many roads, the many walls that would have been built as part of the ancient empire and ancient city. And you can see that from this here. So this here is one of the arches for an entryway and access into the existing building, and that goes down a number of meters. And then obviously more recently, I think around 50 years ago, you can see the new brick here, and that was built, and this was the existing structure, but not its full height. Nebuchadnezzar, what Nebuchadnezzar done, Nebuchadnezzar II, which also stands for I think 15 litres of champagne. What he would have done, he wanted it higher than the previous kings, higher than the previous monarchs. So what he would have done, would have filled the area up and started again on top. So what you have different levels of castles and fortresses and walls and rooms and palaces. Absolutely incredible. We're coming up to now what is probably the most famous part of the city, and that is of course Ishtar Gate, one of 8 gates used to get access into the city. And here you go, there you go. As you can see, one of the many animals and icons used to symbolise the city. We've got a bull, not sure what that is. Yeah, this is the gate. So this is the gate obviously that would have come, that we've got access through from here and down onto the parade road. Of course the gate is no longer used, so I think they use it maybe once a year for New Year celebrations. As you can see on the left, there is actually part of the gate, part of the tower on the left is missing. That was because of the Germans. When they came here in the 19th century and discovered Babylon, they took part of the gate back to Berlin, and I think it now resides in a museum at some age, built in 575 BC by, you guessed it, Nebuchadnezzar II. As we all know, Iraq is responsible for the original writing cuneiform, and I think it's like hieroglyphics. And obviously they used, instead of the mortar, they would use the tar, because let's face it, there's an absolute abundance of oil here. Right, let's show you something that's going to surprise you. This is an existing temple, which was actually excavated. This was built on top, as like the wall here. So this is the original, and then above it would have been the temple that Nebuchadnezzar II had built. So restoration of Ninmakh temple, I think it translates to something like the greatness of women temple or something along the lines, because this is a women's only temple and one they're currently restoring here again. So here we go, we've been given access just in the courtyard. So this is the main room of the temple, and again, if you could imagine, this would have been the bottom, believe it or not, the top of this would have been the bottom of the temple that Nebuchadnezzar built. But let me just show you here. So you can see the original, let me see, yeah, so anything with that, because obviously it was made with clay, mud and straw. This is not original, but the likes of this, where the straw has obviously biodegraded, disappeared with the weather, is original. All this is probably, I don't know, several thousand years old. But the reason why Nebuchadnezzar, obviously he wanted his palaces, he wanted his temples higher than anyone else's, but he also felt that because it was made of mud, he wanted it made of oven baked bricks to make it stronger. So yes, and again on the floor, copious amounts of bitumen and tar and oil, very specialist. But let's make our way down into the city of Babylon. So this is us just on a little bit further from the gate. Ishtar Gate is just behind us, and here we have it. This is Babylon at its finest, the richest and largest city of its time. Twice 250,000 people would have lived here in 600 BC, and home to the epic battles between Alexander the Great and the many Persian kings who would have fought him. Do you imagine what this place would have been like 2,500 years ago? You know, we talk about how some people live and how they, even in some parts of the world where I've been, how they live today. And this place just seems like it's a bit of a paradise. Two things are here. One, the Lion of Babylon, the infamous Lion of Babylon, which the Germans were nice enough to leave. The Germans, believe it or not, took quite a large portion of the original wall, the Ishtar Gate, and it now resides in Berlin. But here is the Lion of Babylon. So the lion represents Babylon itself, and then the human, I'm guessing that's a human, just below it, represents the many empires and the many armies, the many kings who have tried to fight it. And Babylon has come out on top every time. Second thing that's here, and just over my right shoulder, is none other than Saddam Hussein's palace. Now Saddam continued the habit from the, well, I'll say the previous kings, but I suppose the kings and the previous kings of Babylon, and wanted his palace to be higher again, but he wanted to preserve the site. So rather than building again on top of the ruins here, he decided to build on top of the hill. But again, most of the current restoration was done by Saddam himself. And again, like many of the restoration we've seen, such as Al-Qadiyar fortress, this was not for the greater good of Iraq or anyone else. This was a PR stunt in order to increase his popularity, because he knew that the people of Iraq take this sort of thing and their religion and their history more serious than anything else in their life. So he ticks that box, he knows what he's doing, so it was a PR exercise. So as we're heading towards the palace, you can see on our right would have been the many terraces, and these terraces would have been used as, these terraces would have been the foundations, if you like, of the southern palace, and the palace of the king and queen. Not a palace they would have lived in or stayed, but another palace. There were so many palaces in this, well, I suppose by today's standards, it's a small city, 250,000 people, but in respect to who would have been in the palace, a massive, massive place. So you could imagine all the area you see here, right, is only a very, very small part of it, because as we say, only 10% of the city has actually been uncovered. So the palace would have stretched from here, possibly underneath us, towards the walls there in the background, and on this side would have stretched, I don't know if you can see, but there's a palm tree kind of on its own on the other side, as far as that. So that's the size of the palace. This palace would have been bigger than the southern one, which we're going to now, and the southern one was 50,000 square metres. 50,000 square metres. 50,000 square metres. Incredible. So here we are at what is now called, I suppose, the maze, but this is where the soldiers and the family of the king and queen would have stayed. And it is just a labyrinth of walls and halls and rooms, and I think actually as well, although most of it appears to be open, I think just to give you an idea of scale of what's actually still here and what's actually underneath the ground, we're going to try and find, I think there's a kitchen or like a pantry where they actually keep their food, and I think it's down beneath this ground, and it's not a room, it's 1 or 2 meters high. Let me show you what I mean. Here we are, I think. Yes, here we are. Welcome to the Pantry of Babylon. Wow, look at the size of this. It's obviously built like this to keep the food cold. Oh, you would have possibly the rooms with bread, vegetables. Look at the size of this room, you know, these floors must be 2, 6, 8, could be 8 or 9 meters tall. And all under what we were just walking through. Give you an idea of just how large obviously this area was. Right, I'm gonna find out how to get out of here. So again, a lot of this area would have been rebuilt by Saddam, and yes, this is the proof. Obviously you can see some bricks are missing, But what those bricks would have said would have been Saddam Hussein, something as along the lines of the second restoration of this fine city and the protector of this land. UNESCO done was, he decided to remove all these bricks. You can see how many there are, and then eventually you can see it probably does it more damage than it does good, and they decided to just make do and just hold on to them. But yes, now we are in the throne room. This is the very throne room which Nebuchadnezzar II would have stood. He would have stood or sat just at the end and spoken to his soldiers, his family, his friends, his followers, his prisoners, whoever it was. Guys, the history in here is like nothing I've ever seen. So here we are. Nebuchadnezzar would have stood here, gave his speech, and as you can hear, because he didn't want to raise his voice, the shape of the room would have allowed his voice to be made the whole way around the room. Alexander the Great might have only been 32, but he was one of the greatest military strategists and leaders the world has ever seen, and you are now standing in where he died. This is the room. 32 years old. He never lost a battle. Conquered most of the Middle East and destroyed the Persian Empire. 32 years old. He ruled for 13 years. What was I doing at 19? What was I doing at 32? He was a ruler at 19. Incredible. I think he died actually of an illness. I'm not sure whether it was measles. I think there was measles was a huge thing here in Babylon at the time. I think about 330 AD when he died at 32, and he achieved so much in such a little time. What were you doing whenever you were 32? Not making your way through the Middle East, that's for sure. Guys, I am walking around one of the oldest cities in the world on my own. So here we are at our last site of our tour of this ancient city of Babylon, at the Tower of Babylon, which would be here just over those little mounds. And as usual, we have this place completely to ourselves. You'll probably walk over to the rear and start digging, but yeah, what incredible history. And the whole part of having this tower was to reach the heavens itself, as the Babylonians wanted to create a name for themselves, but like the rest of Babylon, the tower fell into disrepair, and the locals, surrounding towns, used the brick to build their own houses, leaving a lovely area of landscape. I have to say, it's very peaceful here. Well, there you go. That is the ancient city of Babylon, which probably has more history than most of the cities put together. In fact, probably has more history than most of the countries nowadays put together. You know, in such a small area, it has, you know, so many historic sites such as the Ishtar Gate, the Lion of Babylon, the Tower of Babylon, and of course the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. And to think only 10% of this area has been uncovered makes me wonder what other secrets lie beneath this ground. I guess we'll have to wait and see.